Hey everybody, my name is Zach Champagne and I'm here to share with you some ideas on how we can create or adapt math tasks built around cliffhangers. Now, I just finished my first book called Curious Kids in the Math Classroom, and I begin the book by level setting with a simple yet profound definition of curiosity. It comes from Susan Engel's book, The Hungry Mind. She defines curiosity as the human impulse to resolve uncertainty. So I spent years thinking about ways we can leverage uncertainty in our math classrooms. I've got a quick list for you of the 6 key components that foster and spark curiosity in your classroom. Let's dive into them real quick. So let's take a look at how we can spark curiosity in our math classrooms. The first way is by providing choice and autonomy. When kids have the option to engage in something that is naturally interesting and curious to them, they'll stick with it longer. We need to find spaces in our math classes where we can provide kids with choice and autonomy to engage in work that is interesting to them. The second way is to normalize, model, and to celebrate uncertainty. If we want kids to be curious, we have to create a space where they feel safe to be uncertain. And we can do that by normalizing it, showing all the times when we are uncertain, by celebrating it when we see someone in a state of uncertainty, celebrating that and honoring that, and then by ourselves modeling that. Putting ourselves in spaces where we're uncertain is critically important. Now, the third way has to do with focusing on student thinking, making sure that we provide intentional spaces in our math classroom where we can honor student thinking, where whether you're using sort of the 5 practices or maybe you're using hands down, speak out conversations, whatever that structure is, you are intentionally making space in your classroom for kids to share their thinking. Because when kids share their thinking, they're more likely to listen to each other. They're more likely to be interested in what other kids say. And most importantly, they're more interested and more likely to engage when someone has an idea that's different than theirs. That will get them curious. Got to embrace our role as a listener. If we want kids to be curious, that means they're going to be talking a whole lot more and sharing things they're curious about. That means us taking a step back and being a better listener to the things that they're saying and how they're thinking about the mathematics. The fifth one is the topic of this video that we'll get to in just a second, and that is to use math tasks built on cliffhangers. We'll come back to that one. But finally, if we want to get kids engaged and curious, we have to focus on ideas over answers. I'm not saying answers are important, but I am saying that student ideas are the things that get kids curious and keep them curious. So focusing on ideas over answers is a really strong way to get kids curious in your classroom. Let's jump back to that fifth one. In that same book, The Hungry Mind, Susan Engel shares ways that we can cultivate curiosity in our schools. One particularly interesting way is what she calls curricula built on cliffhangers. Now, I'm going to lean deeply into this notion. And even though the term curricula might mean something bigger, like a textbook or a set of materials, I've found that the task level is often where we can find, adapt, or create tasks with cliffhangers. If we can use math tasks that lean into cliffhangers, kids become curious. They want to keep going. Cliffhangers work because they tap into something deeply human. Let's consider some pop culture examples for just a moment. When a movie fades to black just before the big reveal, when a book ends a chapter with a secret left untold, or when a TV show ends with more questions than answers, those are the scenarios where our brains can't help but want to keep going. We want to know what happens next. That unresolved tension drives us to turn the page, buy a ticket for the sequel, or keep watching just one more episode. I know I'm super guilty of that. This craving to resolve uncertainty is exactly why cliffhangers can be such a powerful tool in our math classrooms. Introducing that sense of drama and surprise can transform a learning activity. If we can design or adapt tasks that stop just short of the answer, we create that same desire for closure as movies, books, and TV shows do. Students lean in, not because they have to, because they feel drawn to. The unfinished nature of the story invites them to keep thinking, talking, wondering until the mystery is resolved. Or, as it so often does, new questions bloom. So how do we utilize this phenomenon in the math classrooms? We build math tasks that leave our curious kids hanging. Let me share 2 ways that I've been able to do that. The first is just to remove information from the problems. Maybe it's the question at the end, maybe it's the numbers in there, or maybe it's a 3-act task where there's a short video that leaves you on the edge wondering what might happen next. Or maybe we hide things. Let's dive into that one. This is an example of a math task I've been playing around with a lot lately. And it comes from a sign that I saw in downtown Seattle that is actually counting the number of bikes that have passed this spot so far today and so far for the year. And all I've done is taken this picture and inserted a gray text box over the middle of that sign. You can see that right here. So as you look closely, I've hidden something from you here. So I've built up some interest talking about this sign that you might see in downtown Seattle. And I've gotten you engaged with the story that maybe I've told you about it. But what really happens in this moment here is now you're wondering what I'm hiding from you. I've told you I'm hiding something, but that moment for young people make them want to keep going and thinking more about this. And what we do with this task is we just give a little bit more information and a little bit more information. For example, the next thing that I tell people is that, okay, 31 bikes have passed by so far this spot today. So the day that I took this picture. And I ask them, do you have enough information to make an estimate for how many bikes have passed by so far this year? And the answer to that question is, of course, no. We need some more information to make a good estimate there. And so I ask kids, what could I give you? What do you want to know? And more and more and more, they're getting more invested in this. And we give them some information, right? I'm telling them that the photo was taken on February 17th, 2025. And that was 48 days into the 2025 year. Also tell them it was taken at 8:12 a.m. and that actually February 17th is President's Day, and that was a federal holiday. And now you have all this information as I've slowly given you a little bit more and a little bit more. And what happens is people and kids get invested because they're curious about that cliffhanger. They're curious about what's being hidden there. So hiding things is a really, really great way to get kids curious in your math classroom. Another wonderful tool are slow reveal graphs. They are all about the cliffhanger. They start by taking a data representation and stripping everything back from it. So something like you see here. This representation is so powerful because what it allows you to do is just to attend to two things at this point, the red line and the blue line. And those two things are now the things that we want to talk about. But because I've hidden stuff from you again, you're curious about what I'm hiding. So by just taking some of that information back, you can instantly get kids curious because there's a cliffhanger about what this could be. And then what happens in a slow reveal graph is you slowly just give a little bit more information. Like in this case, you can see the y-axis over there, and then a little bit more information that it has something to do with Costco, and then a little bit more information with the x-axis down there, which shows the time that has passed. And then finally, you let them know everything there is to know about this representation. So that cliffhanger keeps you engaged in this much longer. Slow reveal graphs also do that thing I mentioned earlier, which is allow you to attend to one thing at a time. If I were to throw this data representation up, it's an interesting one. Maybe you like Costco. Maybe you might find it interesting about this hot dog combo. But what might also happen is you might be overwhelmed by all the information that you see here. There's a lot to attend to. So by dialing it back, you let kids feel a little bit more safe within the task, but you also keep them curious because they want to know what's coming. So I hope you've enjoyed thinking about how you can create math tasks built around cliffhangers. There's lots more ways that we'll be sharing over the next year or so, but this is just a quick way by covering some things up, dialing some of the information back that you can get kids hanging on because they want to know the resolution of that cliffhanger.